Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to this edition of Global Heat Map. I am your host today, Major General Jagatbir Singh, retired. 7th October 2024 marked 1 year since the Hamas fighters stormed into Israel from the Gaza Strip, killing more than 1,200 people. 1 year later, the Middle East seems to be still in its most precarious state. Israel, in response, entered Gaza and has killed more than 41,000 Palestinians in this area. The state of violence against Palestinians has also increased in the West Bank, and last week the ground offensive in Lebanon started. I must point out that the day after this incident of 7th October, intense firing took place in the northern area of Israel, that is from southern Lebanon, by the Hezbollah into Israeli territory, which has resulted in the displacement of 60,000 people. After that, I've discussed the pager attacks and the death of Hassan Nasrallah. So this is where we stand today, and this conflict over the past year has also seen missile exchanges from between Iran and Israel, as well as firing by the Houthi and disruption of the shipping line from the Red Sea. Now, what makes it worse today is that the Gaza war is still raging. The hostages have yet to be returned. Millions of Palestinians live in inhuman conditions, and as I mentioned earlier, the hostilities between Israel and Iran have increased, and there is more bloodshed in the region. The future still seems that pain in the region is inevitable, and there's likely to be a retaliation by Israel against the Iranian missile strike that took place. So, with rapidly escalating tensions in the region between Israel and Iran and its proxies, the fear of a wider conflict has been pushed higher up in everybody's minds, and this will have grave economic consequences and geopolitical fallouts for the rest of the world and those in this region. And as I mentioned, this also has ramifications for India. So what are these ramifications and what are the impact on India is what I'm going to discuss with you today. So the first thing I'm going to discuss is the impact on crude, because you have seen that the price of crude has risen sharply in the last few days, and from an average of about $73 a barrel, it has now gone up to $77 dollars a barrel. Now the reserve, the RBI had fixed a basket for crude basket for India, and based on that, we have been below that basket for the first 4 months of the year. But however, now this has risen. A drop in oil prices was used towards calming down the average prices in order to reduce pressure on public expenditure. Though there was no, the prices remain steady. But the worry for the government today is the price fallout of any disruption of Iran's oil supply or damage to its oil assets, as there is talk of Israel wanting to target the Iranian oil installations in any further escalation. Though India does not import oil from Iran any longer, but a disruption in Iranian crude oil will drive up prices of the other oil that is available in the market significantly. Iran has a huge oil industry and plays a critical role in the world energy markets, given its vast reserves and production capacity. Now, as per Morgan Stanley, any $10 increase in a price of a barrel of crude, the consumer prices go up by 0.2 to 1.4 percentage points across Asian economies, and for India, that is approximately 0.5. So $10 means an inflation of about 0.5, and higher point increase of oil, crude oil results in higher diesel and petroleum costs going up and higher production costs, and this will lead to hurting of the consumer economy across India. Now, India's net oil import is projected to increase to 101 billion and to 104 billion from the current year of 96 billion. So that is what is there, and this value could even be further driven up. The other important issue is the trade routes. Now, this is something that you must understand, because Iran is at the center of the trade routes which emanate from India towards Europe. Now, turbulence in the region and continuing US sanctions on Iran have already delayed India's critical Charbahar port project that seeks to connect India with Afghanistan and with through the NSTC, the North-South Trade Corridor, with the Central Asian region and thereby on to Europe. Now, even though India's geography entails that the shorter route is through Pakistan or Iran into this area, but Pakistan doesn't allow any transit of any goods by land route through it. So henceforth, India has to develop alternate trade routes through Iran, and India was developing 2 or 3 trade routes which are alternate trade routes. So far, the main trade route of India is the sea route which goes through the Suez Canal. The other route they were developing was the North-South Trade Corridor, which is a land and sea and rail mixed route, which goes, one is from Charbahar to Afghanistan and the other one is from Charbahar, linking it, going through Iran, going towards Azerbaijan and into Russia and thereafter into Europe. Now, both these will get affected by this. The third route that India is developing is the IMEC. Now, the IMEC is the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. Now, this was announced last year during the G20 summit meeting, and it's basically also a rail, ship and transit network, as well as got road transport links. And Israel is a critical part of this corridor, with the Haifa port, which is one of the largest ports in the eastern Mediterranean, serving as a transshipment hub to Europe. Now, all these delays, and a company of India, Adani's, has developed, is contributing to the development of Haifa port. Now, any tension in this region is going to affect all these 3 trade routes. Now, apart from that, we also need to understand the shipping routes. Now, there are 2 important shipping routes that go through this area. One is the route through which the bulk of our oil comes, and that is the Strait of Hormuz, which lies between Oman and Iran and connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and thereafter the Arabian Sea. Now, this is one of the world's most important trade and transit choke points, and the bulk of India's crude flows through this, which along with the Red Sea is critical to global trade. Our country imports 80% of its crude oil from the region, and in case there's any disruption in this route, it will affect the oil supplies to India. So that's extremely critical for us. Now, the Red Sea is another choke point which connects the Arabian Sea to Suez Canal, and ships passing through the Red Sea have been attacked by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels from Yemen. Now, this has resulted in rerouting of ships, and the rerouting takes place via the Cape of Good Hope, that is from the south, that is via the South Africa, and then goes up into the Atlantic Sea. Now, this is something that increases the time, increases the cost, and this also increases the insurance cost. And it is estimated that shippers worth 11 to 12 billion passed through the Red Sea from India to reach Europe, North Africa, and the Mediterranean. And the Houthis targeting this route have raised the cost of freight by about 40%. Now, another thing which will affect India is the air travel. And why I'm saying air travel is the West Asian crisis is complicating travel plans. A lot of people are asking whether it's safe to fly over this region. With missiles flying over this region, already Russian airspace is not being used by a lot of airlines, particularly the North American airlines, which are starting from North America coming into India, which used to fly over Russia because of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Now you have a crisis which is taking place in Iran and in Israel. So we have already cancelled our flights to Tel Aviv in view of the missile strikes. And now Iranian airspace is also dangerous. So if Iranian airspace is also, we stop flying over that, that will involve rerouting of flights, which will mean longer flight paths and higher costs for airlines operating from Europe which to India. So for all airlines, diversions add to fuel costs and heighten airfares. The other worry is that a fallout of the crisis or the escalation in crisis is that the airfares will rise due to the increase in crude prices, which will affect the ATF prices. Now, as the prices surges, it impacts travel affordability and will bound to affect global air travel, particularly at a time when a large number of people visit India during the holiday season in Europe, and they come to India. Another issue which everybody talks about is trade. Now, trade, India has trade with both Iran as well as with Israel. And with Iran, our main trade was with, we were getting crude, which we stopped, but our main exports to Iran are basmati and fruit and pharmaceuticals and chemicals. So what happened is that because of this problem, about 25% of India's basmati rice is sent to Iran, which has been affected due to the uncertainty. This has worried basmati farmers, as the big exporters and rice millers have reduced the quantum of rice they used to buy in the grain markets. And just for example, the price of basmati 1509, which last year was sold at 3,500 rupees a quintal, has dropped to 2,700 rupees a quintal. Now, as far as Israel is concerned, India is Israel's second largest trade partner in Asia and ninth largest globally. In 1992, we had a trade with them of $200 million. In 2023, this figure has risen to $10.77 billion, of which India has a trade surplus. That means we export more to them. We export approximately 8.4 billion to them and import 2.23 billion. And our major items which are exported to them are petroleum, diamonds and chemicals. And the major item which is imported are precious stones and fertilizers. Apart from this, we also have strong defense ties with them, and the military implications of this region cannot be overlooked. Increased military activity could lead to greater instability across West Asia, and particularly if other regional powers get involved, and this could complicate the matters for India, as we have a large number of our shipping that goes through this region. Now, as far as Israel is concerned, I must tell you that in 1999, we started, when the Kargil crisis took place, that is the time we started getting items from Israel, and we got a large number of our spares from them at that time. And after that, we gradually started buying more and more items, military items from Israel. These include, like thermal imaging systems for tanks, Uh, UAVs, we bought the Hermes UAV, which is now being made in India, called the Drishti Starliner. We've also, got, apart from that, we got the Heron from them, and we got the Searcher 2 and the Harap from them. We bought missiles from them, that is the surface-to-air missiles as the Spider and Barak, and surface air-to-surface missiles such as Popeye 1 and 2 and the Spike anti-tank guided missiles. We bought a whole lot of sensor systems from them, and the amount of equipment that we are buying for them includes weapons for our special forces, that is the assault rifles such as the Tavor, Galil, and the Negev machine guns. We've also bought the B-300 man-portable anti-tank weapon system from them. India has emerged as the largest purchaser of Israeli weapons in the last decade, accounting for almost 46% of Israel's weapon exports. Now, with this increased, to a degree after as I told you, the takeoff took place after 1999. Now, in case we are buying so many weapons and equipment from them and Israel gets entangled in a conflict, will they be able to give us the supplies? Will there be disruptions in the supply of these items? That is what needs to be seen. Also, as we move towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, we see there's large amount of joint ventures taking place between Indian companies and Israeli companies. So that's also something that, will this be affected or not, needs to be seen. So these are some of the major issues which are there between India, for India in this global conflict. And apart from that, I must say that we have deep cultural ties, old civilizational ties with Iran. Iran, as you know, is largely a Shia country, and we have a large amount of Shia population in India, which particularly relies in Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, Hyderabad, and places like that. And a lot of Indian scholars go there for theological training at seminaries, particularly in the city of Qom in Iran. And apart from that, there's a large number of people who visit these holy shrines of Najaf and Karbala, which is in Iraq, which is neighboring Iran, and that tourism could also be affected. And the last point I'd like to make is the security of our diaspora. Now, as far as the Indian diaspora is concerned, we have amongst our largest working population outside India works in the Gulf region. Now, their security in the Gulf region has to be ensured. Apart from the people in the Gulf region, we also have a large number of Indians working, about 4,000 Indians who are settled in Iran, who are there, as well as we have large number of Indians in Israel. In fact, recently we signed an agreement with Israel to give them about 1,500 construction workers who would work there on various jobs to help in the construction activity. We have large number of Indians who work there as caregivers and as nurses. So their security also needs to be seen. So these are the issues which I thought I'd discuss to you. The implications of a wider conflict in Asia, the current Israel-Iran conflict engulfs the entire West Asia, but also has a fallout in the region, areas beyond the region and across the globe. And for us, India has so far always refrained from taking sides. We have condemned the killing of innocents in Palestine. We have always talked about giving humanitarian assistance, and we've always said that this is not a time for war. India so far has remained a voice of sanity, asking both the parties to de-escalate the crisis, to de-escalate the tension, and to try and resolve issues. Thank you, and Jai Hind.